Let me just pull up the slides. I will just quickly begin with a few things that I believe are extremely important for anyone who is preparing for the GMAT. And I believe that a lot of things that I tell you, they come from personal experience, not just having taught people, not just having heard and seen the kind of problems that you're talking about. I personally have faced almost all of those things. So I'll discuss a few things that have helped me and a few other people who were in the same sort of they had the same predicament that you had, and how were they able to overcome those things. So I'll discuss all those, and I've kept a note of every single thing that those of you guys have shared, what was holding you back. I'm gonna have a solution for that at the end of the webinar, which is something that I think is not offered by any other coaching company anywhere in the world. So it is something that will entail a lot of operational issues, but I will make this work if in case that is what it takes to get you back on track. So one thing that a lot of people don't know about me is that I actually bombed my first mock test. So what Aniket was saying, I literally had a flashback. I bombed my first mock test, and trust me, till date, I have taught over, I think, 10,000 students at this point. I've been teaching for 10 years. Till date, I haven't seen anyone score that low after putting in what I would say was a decent effort for over 2 months. I honestly was like demoralized, right? A lot of people felt that. I thought that GMAT is not for me, that I'm not smart enough to ace it. And like there was a point when I thought that, okay, I just should drop the idea of taking the GMAT altogether and focus on something else. And I wanted to also blame a lot of people because I had shelled out a good amount of money. I had taken coaching from three different places. But I had to come to terms with the actual problem, which was that I did not actually plan it well enough. The entire approach toward GMAT was as haphazard as it could be for a working professional. I was at that time working in a consulting firm with very erratic work schedule. I attended a lot of GMAT workshops whenever I could, webinars and events. I told you I enrolled in 3 different coaching companies, and honestly, I was trying to just wing it, right? I realized that the way I studied for my school and college exams was the way I was trying to get done with the GMAT. It was scattered practice, focused on solving more and more questions, inconsistent, unstructured preparation, absolutely zero fucks given to analysis, absolutely zero. So I understand what you're saying, Mohit, when you say that, analysis is difficult. I gave absolutely no fucks to analysis. I was trying to do 100 things in 100 different directions. And I totally relate with the fact that you can be totally exhausted and frustrated. I remember like at that time, the one person who could help me realize a few things that I could do better was my mentor. So I spoke with my mentor probably the very next day after I bombed my first mock test. And he helped me realize one thing that, trust me, I believe has made all the difference. Not just in my life, but also in the life of thousands of students who have actually gone on to score great scores. And if you can just understand this one thing at a deep level, I'm 100% certain that you will not have to go through pain, frustration, exhaustion, hopelessness, despair to the extent that I had to go through. You've had your own share of frustration, exhaustion, and despair, but I'm saying you will not have to go through it anymore if you can just understand this one thing. And that one thing is that GMAT is a fundamentally different exam from all the other Indian exams that we've ever taken in school and college. Please understand that last night fight or putting in an all-nighter kind of preparation will just not fly on the GMAT. You cannot score well by rote memorization or by putting in an ungodly number of hours just a few days before the exam. It is just not going to work out. And the key to acing the GMAT, which I've also talked about a lot in the sessions that you have attended, the key to acing the GMAT is critical reading and a structured thought process to evaluate the arguments and passages. And the operative word here is structured. I'm sure you understand that the gestation period for cultivating a structured thought process, for it to actually sink into the subconscious, that gestation period is different for everyone. And it cannot be forcefully shrunk by studying for 10 hours a day or whatever, right? And I'm not saying that some people don't have it easy. Some people do have it easy, and they do have what we call as an unfair advantage. And they can score a 716 just 1 week. I have had students who scored 716 just 1 week. But that unfair advantage is actually the result of all the years of hard work that they have put in already. For instance, a lot of people say this, right? A lot of engineers have it easy with math. a lot of engineers have it easy with math is the general notion that people have in the GMAT circle. But it is because of all the work that they have put in school and college, not because they came out of the womb and gods proclaimed them as math wizards, right? So I really would want to recommend that first you have to start early to have sufficient time to overcome your weaknesses. There's so many people who come to me, they have no idea about GMAT and they want to get this done within 1 month. It is not possible. So please start early and have sufficient time to overcome your weaknesses. There's certain things that just can't be short-circuited. And honestly, once this realization dawned on me that scattered practice won't fly, I remember I decided to speak with around 6 of my seniors at work who scored a 760 or more to understand how could they manage work and GMAT prep. And trust me, like what I learned from them completely upended my notion of what it takes to get to a 760. It was just not what I had been conditioned to believe, because our Indian education system doesn't work like that. So what I learned was completely a shock. It came as a shock to me. But one thing that I really would want to understand here is that when you say it is hard to adhere to a schedule, right? So for instance, that's one of the things that I saw a lot of people talk about. A lot of people talked about temperamental issues. A lot of people talk about commitments. A lot of people talk about not having a study plan. These were some recurring themes that came up in the Google form that we shared, right? So lack of concentration, poor time management, all of these things. And then they lead to all of those things, right? Inability to balance personal and professional. You take breaks and gaps of weeks. There is self-doubt. You feel lost. There's lack of confidence. You feel demotivated. You procrastinate. And frustration and regrets are inevitable when there's so much going on. But I think what I have been able to figure out ever since I kind of brainstormed on possible ways to get you to the score that you deserve and you desire is a very sustainable and effective system, which I believe basically starts with adhering to a strict routine. You have to have a schedule for sure, and a lot of people don't. You will be surprised, guys. I meet so many people, obviously I talk to students day in and day out, and when I ask them, okay, please tell me what part of your day, right, what part of your day is allocated to GMAT, they just don't have an answer for it. Right? They say, okay, I'll do this whenever I find time. If I find time before office, I'll do it. If I find time after office, I'll do it. If I find time in between the office, I'll do it then. But I'll do it when I find time. And trust me, in today's day and age, with information overwhelm, so many distractions and interruptions, there is no way that you will ever find time to do GMAT. You have to make time for it. And the only way you can make time for it is by actually having a block of time in your calendar, which is just for GMAT, right? But I just want to hear from you, like, why is it so hard to stick to a schedule? Once you say, okay, I know for sure there is no commitment that I have from morning 6 to 8 o'clock, or there is no commitment that I have after office, let's say 8 to 10 o'clock. Why can't we, even if you were to set a schedule, why can't you adhere to it? What is your answer to that? Why can't we adhere? Like, I understand those of you don't maintain a schedule, that's fine. I understand. I'll help you understand how you can maintain it. What is the study plan you follow? So that, like, if it resonates with you, it's great. I did not have a routine when I started preparing for GMAT. I was just, as I said, doing 100 things in 100 different directions. And routine was the first learning that I had from those 6 seniors I spoke with. But why don't we adhere to it once we have the routine? What exactly holds us back then? When you know there is no commitment in that window, why do we still not put in the time? If you don't have any commitment, I'm talking about only to those of you who can say this for sure, that these 2 hours, I know I have nobody to answer to. I'm not accountable to anyone else. Why do we still not adhere to it? Yeah, Yush, please go ahead.
For me, man, let's say I choose, 9 to 11 in the morning, which is in general, I'm not accountable to anybody for at least what I do in that time. But what happens is that because I work during, so India time and US time, I tend to work till, let's say, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. sometimes. And that's when I cannot wake up at 9 a.m. to do 9 to 11. And then that pretty much screws up the plan that I had for the next day. And so the ability to say no is something that I've been struggling with. Yeah.
Understood. So you're saying that okay, you don't get enough sleep and you're not in the zone to put in the time from 9 to 11. So why do you then put in 2 hours? Why not 1 hour? Like if in case you think there's that 1 hour that I can definitely put in, why not that 1 hour? Because start easy, start small, because you can get a lot done in 1 hour if you truly are focused and productive in that 1 hour. So
Agreed. Yeah. So that I experimented with that. So let's say even not 1 hour, I said okay, let me just start for 10 minutes. And when I start for 10 minutes, I could stretch it for 1 hour, even though I knew that I just have half an hour. But I could squeeze half an hour from somewhere else because I was able to get into the momentum of studying. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I think, see, one thing I'll tell you what I have come to realize after talking to people is that, and this is what, trust me, like I can so relate with those of you who shared your experience here, that you want that one silver bullet, right? That one silver bullet, that magical potion that can relieve you of the time and effort that it takes to score a high score, right? You want, like Mohit said, it has to be engaging, it has to be interactive for me to be able to put in those 4 hours. But I think one of the things that I learned from them at that time, which I believe has helped me a lot, and I just would like to share, probably it's a different perspective, but I have come to understand that there is absolutely no silver bullet. There is no magical potion that can relieve you of it, of the time and the effort that it takes to get to a high score. Trust me, enrolling for any course, right? Not any course, I would say, like if you've enrolled for my course, one thing I can assure you is that I can make things simple for you, but I cannot make it easy for you. When you enroll for a course, I can make things simple, but not easy. And what is the difference between them? I just want to probably like explain it to you with an example. So if you've decided to, let's say, summit Mount Everest, let's say that's what you've decided, you want to summit Mount Everest. Do you think the coach can bring down the peak and make it easier for you? He can't make it easier. You still have to summit the peak. You still have to go all the distance. But the coach can give you a roadmap to make the journey simple. Similarly, like when you join a gym, the trainer doesn't lift the weights for you or make the weights lighter so that they're easier for you to lift. You wouldn't see that happening in any gym where the trainer is lifting the weights for the client or making the weights lighter so that they're easier for them to lift. He can give you a plan of action that if you follow, then you will not have to use hit and trial, right? You'll not have to use hit and trial, and you can save months, if not years, of wasted effort. But you still need to put in the time and effort. So trust me, like it's not all rainbows and sunshine after you enroll in any course. And if it is, trust me, it's not the right place. It's definitely the wrong place for you. You're not learning anything. You're not growing. You're not really improving there. The course that simplifies every tough question, let's say to make it easier for you to understand, will never work. So you need to have a strict schedule to do the heavy lifting on your own, and only then will you improve. Like I can take classes for you every single day. Every single day I can take a class for you. We can discuss every question in detail, but trust me, like after a point in time, if I am the one simplifying the question, making you understand why the right one is right, why the wrong one is wrong, and you're not putting any effort on your end, it is not going to work out. That's why, like, I've done month-long everyday classes. I've done 5 weeks of everyday classes. I've also planned for a 2-month everyday classes. So I can do that for you to get that initial momentum. But if you don't schedule, at least let's say whatever 1 to 2 hours, which I think everyone can, then it is just not going to work out. You need to do the heavy lifting on your own in that time. And make that window of whatever 1 to 2 hours you can take out every day sacred. Make it sacrosanct. Not one, like not even yourself is allowed to intrude in that window. And trust me, like without this, without having a schedule, without actually like putting it in your calendar that these 2 hours, no matter what happens work-wise or family-wise, I am going to put in the time, is the number one thing that most people miss. They ask me for strategy, they ask me for study plan, they ask me for shortcuts and approaches and concepts, but they don't even have 2 hours in their calendar. So whether you feel like it or you don't, you have to commit to those 2 hours of preparation every single day. And if you actually think about it, Ayush, you talked about how much you're working, Rohan, you talked about it, Mohit, you're also working. Like think about it, at work, you end up putting in all-nighters, right? At work, you end up putting in all-nighters at times, working for months on a project with barely any time to even have lunch or dinner properly. And usually it's all for someone else, right? It's for your manager or for your company. But when it actually comes to working for our own future self for just a few months, right? Just like 2 to 3 months of consistent effort. When it comes to working for our own self for just 2 to 3 months, we can sometimes become casual and relaxed. And if you think long term, if you think 20 years out or 30 years out, what do you think? Do you think one promotion will impact your life as much as scoring a 760 would? Right? Even if you were to get that promotion because you're working all night, all day on a certain project, not having lunch, not having dinner, not studying for GMAT, and let's say you do get that promotion, which is also not certain, do you think that one promotion is going to impact your life as much as scoring a 760 would? And I'm sure you understand the answer to it is a thumping no. Just think 20 years, 30 years down the line. If you think long term and maintain a strict schedule, I believe that you can very well ace at least one component of your preparation. Without this, coaching doesn't help, scheduling doesn't help, strategy doesn't help, approaches, concepts, none of those things help. So first think long term and maintain a schedule. But when people have a strict schedule, then why is it so difficult to stay motivated? Right? That's the next problem that people have. Why do you think people have such a big problem in staying motivated even if they have a strict schedule, they have the entire plan of action? Why do you think they have a problem with staying motivated when you know that this is what I need to get out of the way? What exactly do you think is making you less motivated in your journey? Like, is it the low score that you get on the mocks somebody shared? Somebody said I'm not getting the 740 plus level questions right. Somebody said I'm struggling with quant. Somebody said I'm struggling with CR. So I understand that those things can dampen your motivation. And like one thing that I believe I have used throughout my life, and this again goes back to what I learned from those seniors that I spoke with, is that motivation is trash. Like, trust me, when you embark on something that's difficult, you cannot sustain motivation long term. It is absolute trash. My seniors, when they spoke to me about motivation, or when they spoke about to me for the GMAT, they weren't romantic about the idea of preparing for the GMAT. They clearly told me point blank that motivation is bullshit. Like a short burst of energy that you get, it cannot help you to win a marathon, which is exactly what GMAT prep is. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And discipline is way more important than motivation. And if you want, you can actually just analyze people in your company who you admire, who you look up to, and you would like to be them maybe 10 years, whenever, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years down the line. If you look at all of those people that inspire you, the people who scale great heights in life, they aren't necessarily the most motivated. They aren't going about the office energetically high-fiving people and emphatically like fist pumping, but they are very disciplined. They don't let their emotions and feelings about anything, like about a great matter of importance. They don't let emotions and feelings about something that's important ever distract them from completing the task they've undertaken. They do it even if they don't feel like it, especially by reminding themselves of the bigger picture, of the long-term goal. That is what I have understood after analyzing all these people that I look up to, that they do it even if they don't feel like it, by reminding themselves of the bigger picture, of the long-term goal, not those short-term goals that I want to make my manager happy, not that I want to finish off this particular project, but something that obviously will impact their life for the next 20 to 30 years, right? So that reminder of why you're doing this, I think is really important, and adopting a slightly more long-term sort of vision is definitely going to help you to stick to it and not get bogged down by one low mock score, or one day when your accuracy hasn't improved. And I'm sure you understand, like, without discipline, whatever dreams you have, whatever goals you have of getting to a 760, 770, studying at Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, like, without discipline, I'm sure you understand that those will remain delusions. So what I do personally whenever I undertake a task, whether it's starting up my own company or preparing for GMAT or anything that is very demanding overall, I attach high levels of emotion and meaning to my journey. And I vividly imagine like what success and failure would look like. And I think if you were to do this, it actually fuels you up like it does to a lot of people. Like imagine the feeling of elation when you're holding your scorecard with your target score, and it would have all been worth it. Just imagine that feeling and chase that feeling, and you'll find that whatever ups and downs that are inevitable, no matter what you do, they are inevitable in life. It is never a straight line improvement ever. But if you don't let go of your North Star, where you see yourself, and you kind of hold on to that particular, image or that vision that, this is what I've scored and this is where I want to go, trust me, like that's the best way to keep yourself energized. So if you don't lose sight of the bigger picture, I think if you can just charge yourself up emotionally every single day before you sit down for practice, reminding yourself, why are you doing this? Trust me, it will help a lot. And also creating study plan. Like study plan also helps you to stay disciplined. And I know like study plan definitely, like it gives you the order, it gives you the structure. But I have understood a very important aspect of study plan that really helps you to stay disciplined. And it's a slightly more of a neurobiological reason. And that's basically about like when you check off, important tasks, when you check off something vital from your checklist or to-do list or your study plan, it fires dopamine in your brain, making you feel rewarded and more motivated to continue. Right? So those of you who are struggling to stay motivated, trust me that if you have a clear plan of action that these are the things I need to do, and you even check off one of those things, as even Ayush mentioned, that momentum builds up, right? You are able to kind of, you feel rewarded, you feel motivated, and you feel that you can do something about this. And if you actually like ever introspect and you think about, when do you actually feel great about yourself? Like when do you feel that you can accomplish anything? Like literally you become impractical for a second and you feel you can accomplish anything in life. When do you feel the most motivated? Is it when you conquer your weaknesses? Think about it, right? So there are two situations. When do you feel most motivated? When you conquer your weaknesses, or when you get slightly better at your strengths? What is the case with you? Like when do you feel that you feel energized? Now I can do anything if I've been able to do this? Is it when you start like keep working on your strengths and trying to perfect things that are already good for you? Or when you actually conquer something that you were extremely weak at to begin with?
Conquer something you're weak at.
Isn't it and it is exactly the opposite when I see a study plan of a student. When I see a study plan of a student, they block so much of time for their strengths. Like somebody is good with quant and they'll essentially just dedicate more time to quant. In fact, they'll start their day with quant and then they're going to start with verbal. See, if verbal is a weakness for you, you obviously need to prioritize that. Any effective study plan that I've come across in my life, any effective study plan always starts with your weakness. And that is another thing that I was doing incorrectly the other time, because I had my entire study plan focused on my strengths, whereas the study plan of all of those 6 seniors was focused on their weaknesses. They did not even look at the strengths, they did not even celebrate them. They knew that all the training that they've gone through so far in school and college will help them to kind of maintain their strengths. So for instance, like a few of these people were from engineering background and they kind of had a good hold over quant. So they said that I'm not even going to focus on them and focus on the topics in quant. They just focused on verbal initially, got that up to a decent level, and then they started balancing it out. So I'll talk about balancing quant and verbal. That's definitely one issue that you guys have raised, which I'll address to an extent. But I really would want to first address something that most people miss out on. That you got to start with your weaknesses, and unless you master those, it doesn't make sense to move on to the next thing, right? So these 3 things were the top 3 things. I'll discuss a few more, but these top 3 things actually made a whole lot of difference in my own preparation, right? Strict schedule, 2 hours every day, something that I blocked. I understood that motivation is not sustainable, so I chose to just remind myself on why I'm on this path, and I chose discipline over motivation. And I had like daily goals to hold me accountable, followed by a study plan that was tailored to my weaknesses. And after that, I think things started to fall in place. Then I had some questions about time management, which some of you also have, like how do I manage my time? And there are a lot of ways to manage time. I'm sure I don't have to get into the intricacies or sort of the details of it, because I know for a lot of you, the work is very erratic. You probably are not able to take out the time as much as you would want. But at least one thing that worked for me was that whatever time I was spending in attending, unnecessary sessions. So I was actually a part of a lot of groups back then, right? I had subscribed to GMAT Club at that time. I used to get an email from them every single day. I had subscribed to some other free resources on the internet. They used to kind of give me emails with one question of the day or so on and so forth. One thing that they told me that actually was probably the biggest shock of them all was that to effectively manage time, it is important for you to limit the number of sources of knowledge about GMAT to just one that you can trust. A lot of people are like, they're doing 3 different courses together. I get so many inquiries where people have enrolled in 2 other courses and then they want to enroll for this course, and they're all confused. It's important for you to not be on multiple WhatsApp groups. It's important for you to not be on multiple Facebook or LinkedIn groups or forums. And I found out that my seniors also did not bury themselves in books, like poring over pages after pages of theory, concepts, properties, theorems, formulas that are recommended by anyone on various forums. They did not fixate on or manically search for more and more mocks and more information. They were analytical to the point of obsession. They understood that, more is not better. That is where I've learned this. Like I say this to so many of you when I speak with you, that more is not better. It's not something that I realized on my own. It was something that was taught to me, so I'm just passing it along. That more information generally leads to more confusion, more distraction, and delayed action. Right? No matter how much information you want to gather, you'll actually find yourself crippled with all of that information, unable to take even the first step. I will make things very simple for you at the end of the session, where I'll tell you exactly what it takes to get there. And trust me, you don't need anything else after I discuss that plan of action with you to be able to get to a score of a 760. You're just trying to distract yourself and excuse yourself. And if you allow me, and I can use a strong word, bullshit yourself by, seeking help from multiple sources. Nobody, I told you, has a silver bullet for you. I'll tell you the plan of action that works, and there is nothing apart from that, but you need to be willing to put in the effort and time. Right? Please unsubscribe from anywhere else. If you trust me, you be with me until you're through with your GMAT. If you trust someone else, you be with them, but put blinders on and focus on only one source of knowledge about GMAT that you trust. That for me was, trust me, like it freed up so much of my time. I thought I never have time to study because I'm sometimes attending a webinar, I'm sometimes attending a session that is hosted by somebody. Like I just completely pulled myself away from all of those things and focused on getting the work done. And people just don't do that. They feel that attending a webinar will somehow give them a tactic or a shortcut that can somehow just help them. But trust me, if you are with me, and I am now more of an industry veteran after spending about 10 plus years in the industry, I know what it takes, guys. I know what it takes. And there's nothing beyond what I discussed with you that you need. But please, it's time for you to execute on it. All right. So time management, I don't think there's anything else I can say, because for rest of you, your work schedules might be very different. So I can't comment on that in a general session like this. But one thing that freed up a lot of my time was that. If there is anything that I can offer as a shortcut to you, right? If there's anything that comes as close as a shortcut to, like, let's say, to get more done in a relatively less amount of time, it is the marathon sessions. Like, you have no idea how many people who have properly devoted time to it have been able to get breakthroughs that they just couldn't get earlier. If this only can be done, by the way, marathon sessions you can't do right off the bat. You can't say, okay, today I'm going to do a marathon session and just sit on it and study for 4 hours. You need to first be crystal clear about concepts, approaches, and techniques that have been taught to you. You have to be clear with those first. Once you're clear with them, only then marathon sessions can help, and they can truly be a game changer. I'm not exaggerating. When you do 4 hours of practice of one topic at a time for, I would say, at least 2 consecutive days at a stretch, right? 4 hours of practice of one topic for at least 2 consecutive days at a stretch. You lock in those concepts, approaches, and techniques deeply in your subconscious. Even if you spend, let's say, 40 hours doing scattered practice, you will not be able to attain the clarity, the finesse, the confidence that just 2 marathon sessions can help you to attain. And again, like people who feel that marathon sessions are too much, then the only alternative you have is to do scattered practice, which will take you longer to get there. This is a game changer, guys, I'm telling you. But again, I know it's hard. It's not supposed to be easy. Like getting to a 760 or even a 740 for that matter is not easy. Only 2% of all the people, of all the test takers in the world get that score. I told you I can't bring down the peak of Mount Everest for you. I can't bring it down for you. But I can tell you what helps you to get there. And I believe that, at least I would like to believe, and this is not any disrespect to somebody who might have a medical issue, but for those of you who don't have a medical issue, sitting for 4 hours is not something that is stopping you biologically. It is something that is in your mind, right? It is not that people who can sit for 4 hours are made differently or they have a different brain, they have a different mechanism, right? They are all the same. It's just that for them, the gravity of the exam is as clear as anything can be. So they know that they have to put in the effort. And I'm sure like some of you might have already experienced this, that when you get started for 1 hour and 1.5 hours, it actually becomes easier for you. And then towards the end, it again gets a little hard. But as you do even 2 or 3 such sessions, you're able to develop that muscle that will allow you to stay all the way until the end. So once you're clear with concepts, approaches, and techniques, do marathon sessions. Marathon sessions simply mean 4 hours of practice of one topic at a time for at least 2 days at a stretch. It is not supposed to be interesting. It is not supposed to be something that you have to enjoy. It just needs to get done. And if you can just keep your emotions and feeling out of the process, I think it will be easier for you to get there, right? Nobody feels like putting in that kind of effort, guys, but you have to in order to be able to get there. So this is as close as anything gets to really getting to the score that you want in a short span of time. So practice these if you're serious about getting it in about, let's say, one or two months. Ayush, how was your experience of marathon sessions? And those of you who've undertaken it, please help me, and maybe other people can also benefit from it.
Manan, when I was studying, and I had taken 11 days off just before the exam, and I hadn't studied before those 11 days. And so at least what happened with me was, okay, I first brushed up all the concepts, and then I devoted 2 days of 10-hour study on each day to say, okay, I'm going to just focus on SC and improve my accuracy. And after 2 days, I could drastically see that improvement. That's one. And then I recall my score when I started giving mocks in the last 5 to 6 days. My score was quite low. And then when I spoke to you, you told me that, hey, do 4 hours of RC sessions. And when I did that, my score jumped up from 680 to 740 at home, or 750. And I could make out it is all because of the increase in concentration.
Absolutely. I think, nobody does it. That's the whole point. And nobody actually puts in that kind of time, but the results are remarkable. And that is as close as anything can get to shortcuts. What about you, Ankush? I remember that you also had done a lot of marathon sessions and you have been preparing for a while. Were they helpful?
Yeah, extremely helpful. So, timing used to be an issue. I mean, my final attempt also was an issue, but my mock results were consistently very, very high because of the marathon sections. Because each section where I thought I was slightly lagging, those long sessions just made it smoother organically. It was not like effort. It just started getting faster. Things started clicking sooner when I'm looking at questions. So yeah, I think it just makes the whole process a lot more better when you give it enough time. And yeah, I think the marathon session played a very, very big part.
Right. So the clarity that you get, guys, the finesse in the application of the approach, the kind of confidence that you have, it is unmatched. People feel that they have to put in 8 days, 10 days, 20 days on a particular topic to master it. but even 2 marathon sessions can help you to gain that finesse, that clarity and confidence I'm talking about, that even 40 hours of scattered practice can't. So there is something in consolidation, there is something with intensity that I believe is at play here. So definitely it can be a game changer if you take it up seriously. And then the last thing obviously is about the test taking strategies, which a lot of you guys had questions about. That how do you balance speed and accuracy? What should be the pacing and the mock analysis strategy? My time is not reducing. I'm not improving my speed. A lot of those things that you talked about with me in the initial part of the discussion, I would just like to address those with the last point here, which is of test taking strategies. See, the one thing that I've come to realize, and I'm sure you can possibly think back on your life and you can relate with this statement, that sometimes the sooner you wish to get something done, the longer it takes, right? The sooner you wish to, let's say, get to under 2 minutes per question, the sooner you want to get to that 100% accuracy, the longer it will take for you to get there. And I remember, like, so if you kind of relate this back to maybe somebody who is joining a gym, right? And I'm sure you might have actually come across this, like in gym, people who wish to transform their body radically in just 1 or 2 months end up doing more harm than good, right? There are so many, like my gym trainer actually told this to me, that there are people who come up to him almost every single day asking that instructor of mine that how can I build my body in just 1 or 2 months, and they end up doing more harm than good. And this is what I see even in GMAT. Like the most common and the worst mistake that people make is that they start working on time and speed from day one. Even if you want to be, let's say if one person wants to be an Olympic level swimmer, let's say, I'm sure you understand that one cannot get there by focusing on speed from day one. You need to, like, if the person has to be an Olympic level swimmer, one needs to first get the approach right at your own pace, right? Not by competing with others, like, okay, other person is able to swim that fast, I need to be able to swim that fast. You need to first get the approach right at your own pace, right from how your hand enters the water to your body position underwater to, let's say, the stroke of your arm to the way you flap your legs. All of that has to first be completely locked in. Can you imagine the scene, right? If someone did all of that, right, trying to understand how to enter the water and body position and strokes and all, if someone tried to did all of that without really taking the time to internalize each of those moves, can you imagine the mockery that person would make of himself? Like he or she will be like a blob of a person, frantically like flapping hands and feet and splashing water all around without even moving an inch. That person will be more exhausted than somebody who actually took the time to first internalize the approach. Can you guys relate with this to a certain extent? Right? Think about a person who hasn't taken the time to internalize the right approaches and they're just trying to work on speed. You'll find that their hands and feet, and I've seen this like firsthand, when they're trying to kind of flap their hands and feet and they're splashing water and they're not even moving an inch forward. And this is what I have seen happen in GMAT as well. See, there are most students, and the reason why most students get interested in GMAT is obviously at the prospect of getting into a fancy business school, right? That's why most people get interested in GMAT. They want to get into a fancy business school. GMAT is a means to an end. But what happens after they attend a couple of classes, and let's say they try a few questions, they end up judging themselves too soon whether they are good at it. And if they aren't good at it, they chalk it up to a lack of natural ability or talent. And at this point, after a few classes, when somebody is not good at something and they chalk it up to a lack of natural ability or talent, at this point, there are basically two groups of students that emerge. So first are quitters, right? At this point, they simply quit completing the homework sincerely. They almost give up. They excuse themselves from putting in the effort by saying that they have more important work at the office, so they'll start later. So first group is that they say, okay, it's too hard, probably I can't do this with work, and then they start focusing on work. And then there's the second bunch who basically carry on with brute repetition. They carry on with brute repetition, like to get better, they're just attending more classes, they're practicing more and more questions, and they hope they will become proficient and be able to progress. And I can tell you from experience that neither of these two approaches work, right? You can't obviously quit and expect to get back and be at the same level, and you can't be doing mindless repetition and expect to become proficient and progress, right? It reminds me, like I was talking about the day I went to the gym. So when I went to the gym, it was after almost about 6 months. So 6 months back, I sustained a back injury. So I had to basically get a lot of physiotherapy and all of that done. So I went to gym after 6 months of that surgery. And when I, like 6 months back, I had about 7 people who used to go to gym with me. 5 of them had quit, and two of my gym buddies are still there. They've still been regular. They've been going to gym every single day. They have been lifting weights, but they all looked the same to me. And I was like, why has there been no change? Like zero change, absolutely. And they've been going to gym as per them every single day. And when I actually spoke with them, and even when I saw them, I saw that they're all using brute force, right? They're both using, like, they're doing random exercises. There is no plan. There is improper posture. It's a very unscientific approach, which is actually holding them back from making any tangible progress. Mindless repetition doesn't work, not in gym and definitely not for GMAT. All right, so what actually works, I'll discuss those things for you now. Keep a note of them as properly as you possibly can. And if you understand every single thing that I'm about to discuss with you now, whatever 6-7 points I don't have them on the presentation because I thought I'll end it here, but because there were so many questions that you asked me at the beginning of the session, I'm just trying to give you that one plan which will allow you to take care of everything. And after that, you don't have to attend any more of my webinars. You don't have to attend any more of any other event related to the GMAT, because why are you even so when people think about application, when they think about SOPs and recommendations, like they're thinking too far out. My seniors actually sat me down and said, kid, until you don't get your GMAT done, don't even think about anything else. And that's again something that you can probably apply in your own life. Why are you so interested in working on your applications when you know that the basic thing that needs to be done first is not even done? Why are you wasting your time and energy on those things? Conserve them. Conserve that energy and use that energy on the GMAT instead of attending all of those events. So I'm just going to basically lay down what I think is the solution to the problems that you guys have spoken to me about at the beginning of the session. And this will take care of everything. The time that it takes for someone to master it, that is very difficult for me to say, because I told you that some people have it easy, some people have it difficult. It depends on a variety of factors. So I can't commit about the time that it will take for you to get this done, but I can tell you the sequence, I can tell you a way. If you use this way, you will be able to get there provided you're consistent. And then I'll talk about one other proposal or a recommendation that I have, that if you guys were to make use of, I think this should kiss away any problems that you have as far as GMAT is concerned. So when it comes to preparation strategy, let's not even talk about the test taking strategy at this point. We'll talk about balancing speed and accuracy, but first let's start with preparation strategy. The first and the foremost thing that you have to first focus on is concepts. A lot of people, they just cursorily skim the concepts, and please guys, make a note of it. And I'm telling you, if you make a note of this and you apply it, you will see the results. I'm not joking here. This is not my opinion. I'm not experimenting with you. I'm telling you something that has been tried, it has been tested, and it has worked wonders for people from background way worse than yours. I know each one of you who's attending the session right now, and I can tell you that it has worked for people from a background that was so much worse that you can't even imagine. They were working such crazy jobs, multiple things. I don't want to get into that, but it has worked wonders. So keep a note of this and study in a very systematic manner. Don't do mindless repetition. I'm telling you exactly what you need to do. The first thing is concepts. Whether it is quant, or it is sentence correction, or it is critical reasoning, reading comprehension, you need to first make sure that you're clear on the concepts and pick one topic only at a time. do not pick up 2 or 3 or 4 topics. You start with one topic, whichever topic you are the weakest at. If you want, I have an entire plan of action for sentence correction. I have a plan of action for quant. I have a plan of action for critical reasoning and reading comprehension. If you need that plan of action, I'll share it with you. But first, you need to start with concepts. So let's say I take the example of sentence correction. So what all things will come in the concept phase? In the concept phase, it will be maximize your writing score. It will be 51 liners and it will be SCPPT. These are 3 things that come in the concept part of sentence correction. Unless you are not through with at least maximize your writing score in 51 liners, it doesn't even make sense to attempt even a single question. If you know there are gaps, and I can't tell you guys, like I just find it so obvious, but some people are so in a rush to get this done with, and as a result they essentially end up taking longer, and that's just because of the glaring gaps that they have conceptually. So you have to have confidence in yourself that every single chapter in maximize your writing score, every single one-liner in 51 liners, you have absorbed, you have internalized, it has become a part of your blood and bones. That is the extent, that is the kind of quality of preparation I want you to have. Now, in concepts, there are 2 things that come. The next thing is approach. That how do you tackle a sentence correction question? Where are the possible differences in the answer options? I'm taking sentence correction as just as an example. You can apply this to whichever topic that you want to work on. So what are the ways in which you can spot errors? Like what are those places where you can find those errors? And what is the hierarchy in which you need to apply all of those things that you have learned? You have learned grammar rules, you have learned preferences, you have learned idioms, you have learned meaning clarity. Like how do you even approach a question with all of this, baggage of knowledge? So that's what we do in the classes, right? In the classes, I take you through one question at a time to tell you that you're not supposed to apply meaning before grammar, to tell you when to apply word-based preferences, when to apply expression-based preferences, to tell you the importance of idioms. That is exactly what we do in the classes. We obviously do cover the most important basics in the class also, but we spend majority of the time to focus more on the approach. How do you actually approach a question? And once you have done the concepts and you have attended the classes and understood the approach, then the third stage is application. Application of approach, application of concepts. It cannot be learned or let alone mastered. It cannot be learned in a timed manner. And this is again the mistake that people make. They feel, okay, I've attended the classes, I have done the concepts, let me just start timing myself when I practice questions. When you're learning the application, please don't force yourself to answer a question within a stipulated window. I told you the rate of grasping, the rate of absorbing, the rate of application is different for everyone, and it takes some time and some practice to get proficient. But please don't time yourself in the third phase, which is the application phase. You need to give yourself ample time to be able to collect your thoughts and make them structured, make them streamlined, and be able to apply. Number of questions doesn't matter. If you were to spend 20 minutes on one question, that can give you deeper insights about a particular topic than maybe just superficially solving 20 questions would. Just one question you spend 20 minutes on, you'll end up getting a lot more insight. So please understand, application cannot be learned in a timed manner. You need to give yourself ample time unless your accuracy reaches up to a 95 to 100%. If I tell you there is no cap on the kind of time that you're supposed to take to solve a question, if I'm telling that to you, that there is no cap to how much time you're supposed to take to solve a question, then why should you settle for an 85% accuracy? Like, why would you want to stop at 80% accuracy? There's so many people who come to me and say that, you know what, I achieved 80%, I achieved 85% in untimed manner, and then I started timing myself. I said in untimed manner, if you're getting 80-85%, what is going to happen when you start timing yourself? Wouldn't it drop drastically, probably to 60%, 50%, which is what happens in most cases? So if you have time, don't you think you should be a little more strict with yourself and say that how the hell am I not getting the question right when I have ample time to think about it? I have the concepts dialed in, I have the approach clear. Why am I not able to get there? Be hard with yourself, be strict with yourself, and keep practicing until you get to a 95% accuracy, at least that much. At least 19 out of 20 you should be able to get if there is no pressure. And unless you get there, there is no point of thinking about mock tests. There's no point of thinking about timed practice or your even exam. Just focus on getting the third phase done. Your accuracy has to reach 95%, if not 100%, before you start timing yourself. And in this phase, you absolutely must maintain an error log. Even if it takes long, you have no idea how important that is going to be in the last 1 week to 10 days of your preparation. You have no idea. And see, patterns don't pop up. I'm sure those of you who are in the data, in the field of data, you do understand that patterns don't emerge until you have a critical mass of data. You need to have certain data points before the pattern starts to emerge. People have not even tabbed 10 mistakes in their error log and they're trying to search for patterns. So please understand that diligently and sincerely, you need to tabulate your mistakes. I told you it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have like, bar graphs and pie charts flying around in an Excel sheet. Just have the question number that you solved incorrectly. Write down why did you make the mistake. I've talked about this in the class, but I'm talking about it again to you. Don't label anything as silly. Every silly error has a deeper cause. And until you work on that deeper cause, that silly mistake will never let go of you. So for instance, if you made a calculation mistake, why did you make a calculation mistake? Were you in a rush to solve the question? Were you exhausted by the end of the day? Were you not in the right frame of mind because you had an altercation with someone? Right? All I'm saying is that there has to be a deeper reason as to why did you make the silly mistake. Now think about this. If you made a calculation mistake because you were exhausted, does that not give you a clear plan of action for tomorrow? That what is the point for me to study when I'm making careless mistakes when I'm exhausted? Let me study when I'm not exhausted. Simple. Things don't have to be profound for them to create profound changes. So if you know that you made a mistake because of exhaustion, tomorrow I'm going to study when I'm not exhausted. If you thought that it is a frame of mind that had an issue because you had an altercation with someone and that's something that got to you, then obviously the next day you want to make sure that you're able to maintain that peace around you. Like you would not want to engage in anything that will put you off, that will throw you in that state of mind when you start to make silly mistakes. Like you understand you will have a clear plan of action for tomorrow, but if you were to just say, okay, I have made a silly mistake, it is never going to let go of you, and you'll find your accuracy will plateau and not be able to go beyond a certain point. There will be a glass ceiling you will hit. So we've talked about concepts, we've talked about approach, we've talked about application in untimed manner. And the third phase is timed practice. Now, when you do timed practice, the way this works is that you have to gradually shave off time. A lot of the times I see people, they have been doing untimed practice until yesterday. And today they are going to basically just overnight start working on 2 minutes per question or 1.5 minutes per question. And I'm sure you understand like that is a fallacious approach, right? Because if you have been solving questions in 5 minutes or 6 minutes in untimed phase, let's say, then you can't expect yourself to drop it down to 1.5 to 2 minutes. So at that point, you have to become a little more strategic. You have to become a little more strategic that I will only shave off so much time that my accuracy doesn't drop below 90%. So if you are, let's assume at 5 minutes per question, right? You take 5 minutes per question to get to a 95% accuracy. You will want to shave off 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, how much ever you can shave off so that your accuracy doesn't fall below 90%. You're not supposed to shave it off by a minute if it were to drop to 85%. You would want to shave it off by 20 seconds, 30 seconds. That's something that I will leave up to you. And then you need to continue practicing at that level until it goes up to 95%. And it will, right? When you force yourself just slightly, you're just in. And see, there is, for those of you who have read about productivity, you do understand that you will only improve if you challenge yourself only slightly every day. If you were to put a monumental kind of a goal in front of you that I need to be able to shave off 2 minutes per day or 3 minutes per day, that is too much. It is not going to happen and it will just unnecessarily create more anxiety in you. But if you were to push yourself to say that, okay, let me just, shave off 15 minutes per question right now. Let me just shave off 20 seconds per question right now. That is attainable. And you do that every single day. Incrementally higher goals, like incrementally more challenging goals. If that is what you push for, you'll find it will not take more than 2 weeks. Worst case scenario I'm talking about, after having spoken to so many students, if you just focus on incrementally increasing the challenge, you will find you'll be able to hit the target time per question in about maximum 2 weeks. But it has to be done on a consistent basis. So you gradually keep shaving time off, and you become more cognizant of what kind of mistakes you're making. You again need to maintain an error log so that you can avoid those mistakes. But at no point should your accuracy ever drop below 90%. If it does drop below 90%, the inference is that you have bitten off more than you can chew. That is the inference. You've bitten off more than you can chew. So you got to give yourself a little more time, get your accuracy up to 90%, and then again start the exercise of shaving off a little more time. And it will not exactly be 15 seconds or 20 seconds or 30 seconds every single day. Some days you might be able to shave off 30 seconds per question, and someday you might be able to shave off only 10 seconds per question. That is all right till the time you know that you're actually improving every single day, that you're improving by some margin, and no margin is too small. No margin is too small. Just because you've improved by 10 seconds per question on a single day, that doesn't mean that, okay, I haven't made progress. That is decent progress. I think if you just reframe your goals with respect to how much progress am I making towards them, and not just be anxious about, I haven't still got there, I've taken 4 months preparing, 6 months preparing, this and that. If you just don't focus too much on the goal, but you focus on making sure you're following the right process, that is what will make the goal attainable. And that's one thing that I've seen. People are so under pressure. They're you talk to them and you can feel them fidgeting, you can feel them anxious and nervous. And that's just because they're constantly just thinking about the goal and not really thinking about the process that will help them to get there. So when it comes to time and speed, it is actually a very organic way. It is not something that will happen overnight. So it takes about 2 weeks maximum for people to be able to get the time per question to less than 2 minutes from the application phase. That is the fourth phase. So again, I'll quickly repeat. You start with concepts, you focus on approach, you focus on application in untimed manner, and then you focus on timed practice. And the fifth thing that you do is that you take mock tests, right? The mock tests test you on every single one of those four things. Mock tests test you on concepts, they test you on approach, they test you on application, excuse me, and they test you on application of concepts and approach, and they test you on time. If you haven't worked on those four things, it doesn't make sense to even take a mock test. So if you have those four things taken care of, you will find that the very first mock score, I've had so many students who were starting from scratch. They just paid attention to the process. They did not let a lot of information overwhelm them, and they just followed the process, and they were able to get to a 720, 730 on the very first mock. So that is the fifth stage, that you need to take mock tests. Now, there are some additional points that I have, 2 more points that I believe can help you to stay consistent and be disciplined. One, joining a study group of sorts. Right? Joining a study group of sorts to hold yourself accountable definitely works very well. That's essentially why you take classes, right? Why do you take classes? You're not taking classes just for the sake of knowledge. You're taking classes so that you can hold yourself accountable, right? So once you've got the required knowledge from the classes, then I think it makes sense to join a study group to hold yourself accountable. And I think the last point that worked a lot in my favor, that I believe has helped me to become proficient at, let's say, sentence correction, critical reasoning, and so on and so forth. These areas that were really very weak for me. Reading comprehension, I can't even tell you guys how weak it was for me. I'm embarrassed to even share, but it was extremely weak. I haven't seen people usually to be at that level, even after a month or month and a half of practice. But it was embarrassingly low, the accuracy. But one thing that really worked for me was that even if I learned something slightly, in my study group, I used to take the time to teach it to other people. I never ever intended to become a coach or a teacher. It was just that habit of teaching whatever I've learned to someone else that it kind of, put a light on my assumptions, some of the blind spots that were holding me back. And if you were to, go through papers after papers of what it takes to learn something to the level of mastery, every single person will tell you that leveraging the extraordinary power of teaching is the best way to do that. When you teach something to someone, you end up learning way more. I can personally attest to it. So that is the seventh thing, that you teach it to others. And that is how you make the study group not enjoyable, but you make it informative. That you are sharing a perspective that can help someone else, and in turn, you also end up learning a lot more. So it becomes collaborative, which actually helps a lot overall in terms of preparation. So these are 7 things, frankly, if you were to focus on, you should find a significant difference